Tim and Joanne Roberts were living what most people considered the perfect life. They had a nice home in an upscale suburb with 2 boys in middle school. Tim had his dream job, which paid well enough that Joanne could be a stay-at-home mom and do some consulting work on the side more as a hobby than a second income. Tim's job did require some travel about once a month. The job also included several perks, including membership at an upscale country club paid for by the company. The kids were off at summer camp and Tim had just left for a 3-day trip to generate some new clients. Joanne decided to go to the country club pool just to socialize and have some human contact. Since the kids were gone, she could wear something more risque, not like a mother with 2 kids in tow. She pulled out a sexy white string bikini from a drawer. She tied the strings of the bikini bottom on and then reviewed herself in the full-length mirror. It was too skimpy, just barely covering her cunt, but it did look good on her as she twisted around to see how good her butt looked. Her breasts were still firm and perky for a woman with 2 kids. She still had that college girl look, and today she had a chance to show off those bad girl titties. Joanne pulled the top on over her head and tied it in the back. Once again, she reviewed her look in the mirror. It just barely covered her nipples, but this time she smiled with pride. She liked the slut look on her. She remembered exposing her boobs to the cameras at spring break in Panama City, not quite as perky as back then, but they still were nice and firm. Joanne liked the idea of taunting those middle-aged trophy wives at that country club, flaunting the fact that she was still as hot as they once were in their faded prime. She was sick of those condescending old hags looking at her like she wasn't as good as them. Today she was going to put her assets on display and see what their husbands thought about it. She slipped on a beach cover-up and a big floppy hat with some movie star sunglasses. Too bad she didn't have a convertible to go cruise the boutique shopping district and play the diva. When she arrived at the country club, the teenage valet gave her a long look and a boyish grin that brought back memories of her nights out clubbing with some of her slutty girlfriends back when they used to go man-hunting at the hottest night spots in town. Joanne paraded through the lobby into the locker room and then out to the pool area. The towel boy was much more eager this time to assist her without a pair of kids tagging along. The skimpy top showing off her cleavage and other skin may have helped to motivate him just a little. He gave her a lounge chair in a nice location with a table and beach umbrella. He spread out a towel and offered to get her a drink or some bottled water. Joanne asked for a very specific mixed drink and then quizzed him on the exact ingredients, insisting that he bring it to her immediately and not make her wait. Normally she would not be so demanding, but today she was playing the part of the arrogant rich bitch like so many of the other members in this overpriced club. She looked around the pool area to see who else was there and who was watching her as she set her bag down next to the lounge chair. After deciding who was worth impressing, she turned in their direction and slipped her beach cover off and bent over, and laid it next to the chair, making sure the right people got a good view of her cleavage and the scandalous swimsuit she was wearing. She did get noticed. The same people that had seen her there so many times before now had very different facial expressions focused on her every move. They didn't recognize her, they were all wondering where they had seen her before. It was a fun game and Joanne liked playing it. She laid back in the lounge chair and enjoyed the warmth of the sun and the spectacle she had just put on as she sipped on that special drink she had requested. As she gazed across the pool at some older men scoping her out, the dark shadow of a large man slowly moved across her body, blocking her sun. As Joanne looked up, it was Mr. Anderson, Tim's boss and the owner of the company. "That was quite a show you were putting on," he said in a deep condescending voice. Joanne grabbed her beach cover-up and pulled it up over her body. She felt like a naughty schoolgirl being sent to the principal's office for a major screw-up, a situation she was very familiar with. "You know, the reason I gave Tim a membership here was to help promote business and to impress our potential clients, not to detract from the image of the company. The economy is slowing down and some layoffs may be coming for those who aren't helping with the bottom line. Maybe I need to cut his position if he is going to cost me contracts. I didn't mean to create any problems," Joanne pleaded. "If there is anything I can do to fix this, I am willing to do it." "Perhaps we need to go somewhere a little more private and have a talk," he responded with a stern voice. They strolled around the premises to a secluded area behind the showers and near the service entrance where the deliveries are normally made. It was an enclosed area with a chain-link security fence and gate facing the employee parking area. On the walkover, she had been mulling over in her mind the possible implications of Tim losing his job and what impact it would have on him and her family. She needed to fix this, but how? He was a businessman, maybe they could negotiate something, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back kind of thing. He was a rich and powerful man. Joanne was not sure what if anything she had to barter with or if she had something that he wanted. I expect total commitment from my employees and their families if they want to be a permanent part of this organization. Anderson articulated. I am sorry, I would be willing to do anything to help the company so Tim could keep his job. Joanne proclaimed. What specifically does anything mean? Anderson asked. What would you like from me? Joanne inquired. Without uttering a single word, he made his desires known with his wicked smile and the way his eyes worked their way down her scantily dressed frame, leaving no doubt about what he had in mind. She swallowed hard and glanced at him, attempting to avoid direct eye contact. She saw the look in his eyes. A sense of panic shoot through her when she realized what he was after and what the price was for Tim keeping his job. I see where this is going, Joanne said. Do you? He asked. Then maybe we can come to some type of arrangement to persuade me to forget about your inappropriate actions. He cupped her face and then his other hand began slowly moving down her arm and the side of her body with a very light touch against her bare skin, eventually resting on her thigh. His advances caught her off guard. He was a strong brute of a man. He played football in college as a lineman and could have gone pro but damaged his knee. His upper body strength was not affected, his arms were as big as a fence post. He exuded both power and confidence like the arrogant asshole that he was. Are you sure you want to do something for me to help your husband's career? He asked again. You are not very subtle, are you? She retorted. I am not sure I can give you what you want. He whispered in her ear. Perhaps if I take it from you, that way you wouldn't feel quite so guilty about it. Her time for hesitation was over as he lightly grabbed her by her neck, pushing her back up against the fence. He began to kiss her, forcing his tongue into her mouth. His control over her grew stronger as his hand began playing with her nipples. His other hand started to explore her thighs and legs. She could feel his growing arousal pressing against her, and she started to push back against it. She began to struggle, which incited him to drive her body even harder up against the fence. Leave me alone and let me go, damn you, she snarled at him. He moved her legs apart as he pushed his fingers into her pussy and started wriggling his 2 fingers inside her. Joanne leaned her head back on the fence as he kissed his way down her neck. She attempted to protest, but her body failed her. Despite his roughness, this man was exciting her. She could feel herself getting wet and couldn't stop it. She pleaded for him to stop as he continued to kiss first the nape of her neck and then up to her earlobe. He held her there, pushing his fingers between the lips of her pussy and rubbing her clit. Joanne felt her body going weak as he rapidly thrust his fingers in and out of her. He moved his tongue down to her breasts, licking and sucking at her nipples. Pulling his fingers out of her pussy, he clutched her hair in one hand and pulled her towards him. He then spun her around and pushed her up against the chain-link fence that prevented any chance of escape, but also offered no concealment of their debauchery to anyone who wanted to stand there and observe them. She accepted her fate that this was happening with or without her consent. Joanne inserted her finger through the tarnished wire of the fence, grabbing hold of it while defiantly cursing him under her breath. Her legs were slightly spread apart, bent over, staring straight ahead, surrendering her body to be taken and used for his pleasure. He untied one of the side strings, holding her bikini bottom on, and took up position, grabbing her hips with a firm hold and began pumping her from behind. Her fingers tightened, wrapping around the links in the fence. With each thrust, his pounding became more and more intense and more relentless. She hung her head down, closing her eyes, hoping it would soon be over, and another part of her hoping it would last forever. He fucked her hard and aggressively. She hated him, but it felt so damn hot. He was a jerk, but he was a well-hung jerk, and he did know how to use that cock. He slowed his assault, switching to a slow short upward thrust into pussy, releasing her hips and moving his hands to untie her bikini top from the back and letting it hang down while he seized her tits from behind, squeezing them at the base and occasionally pinching the tips of her nipples. The thrill and sexual intoxication of such an illicit act and the fear of being caught were making her crazy with excitement. She was pushing back against him, forcing her bottom against his groin and pelvic bone. Like and subscribe to receive the second part of the story, and support me by visiting the t-shirt store in the first comment.